Welcome to the NASCAR show here on The Grueling Truth. My name is Ryan Peters, and I'm joined today by Steve Risley and Joe Spilman, just like any other day, as long as we are all healthy. Steve, we haven't talked since Sunday, but how have you been since then?
Doing fine. Life is good in California. It's 85 and sunny every day of the year here. We haven't seen rain in about a year.
That's not bad. And
No,
you're not allowed to use any water on top of it.
no,
So,
we have water restrictions. Our grass is turning brown fast and everything like that. And only thing we're doing is keeping pool in the water. So we gave up the rule: don't pee in our pool. It's
do what you
filtered.
got to do.
It's filtered.
And
we
over
chlorinate.
to the right side of Steve, Joe is listening to his favorite song. I think it's Neil Diamond, if it's the same one that we were listening to off air.
Caroline. Wait, yeah, we better stop copyright infringement. And Steve, nobody gives a shit about what's going on in California. Ryan, I'm doing excellent. Let's get to the show.
All right.
I'm with you, Joe. I don't give a shit what's going on in California. Get me back to Indiana.
But he cares about Malibu, Steve.
Well, Malibu's a different world. Oh yeah, it is.
If you guys are looking for an educated show, this is probably not the one you're looking for. So we're going to do our best to talk about guys turning left in NASCAR. But before we do that, we want to tell you about our sponsor, The Grueling Truth. The Grueling Truth, powered by betting.net. Betting.net is your best bet for finding an online sportsbook or casino that's right for you. And before we dive into the news, I want to give a quick shout out to a few people that have been listening to this show. My friends Charlie and Justin at Gas Trading Cards on Loop have been listening in, tuning in, and they can hook you up with sporting cards, whether it be NASCAR or other stuff. They've been listening in, said they really enjoy it, so I told them I'd give them a shout out. So thank you, Charlie and Justin, for tuning in.
Hey, Ryan.
Yep.
Find out if they want to buy some incredibly valuable Pokemon cards. These are like the highest power and value. They covet these things.
Justin will tell you all about that. He is the wolf from Pallettown.
My son will tell you.
I know
all about
you
that
have.
Too.
Yeah, I know the wolf from Pallettown has nothing to do. Joe, what's wrong with you?
I'm fucking. You guys are talking about fucking Pokemon cards.
Let's go.
It's a goddamn NASCAR show.
Let's go. We'll talk after the show, Ryan. The hell with Joe.
Yeah, screw that guy. No wonder my mom doesn't like you, Joe.
We'll block you. My mom doesn't like you either.
Yeah,
my mom doesn't like me.
Getting into the show, because Joe's going to start taking his shirt off or something soon. So if you did not tune in, we do a post-race show on Sundays, as long as Joe can. And those are Sunday after the race around 9 to 10 p.m. So if you want to catch what happened at the most awesome, exciting road course race of all time, you can go back in on The Grueling Truth and look that up. But Tyler Reddick ended up winning that race. He passed a Hendrick car supported by the guy here in the middle, which was a theme this weekend for Road America, for a Hendrick car to get passed towards the end of the race. So we have all of that again on Sunday. Is there anything you guys wanted to elaborate that we did not touch on Sunday from this past weekend's race?
Ryan, I don't know how we could possibly talk about that race anymore. I think you just summed up the race. Real exciting.
Hey, Joe.
Yeah.
The one time you could have said and elaborated the way you did Sunday, you could have just said no.
No.
So we'll go on to the news. And in the news, there's not a lot of news, but one thing that has happened is Noah Gragson was fined $35,000 and 30 points due to him trying to wreck a fellow competitor and then causing about 12 other cars to wreck. Dale Jr., who owns Junior Motorsports along with Kelly Earnhardt, came out and said, we back Noah through thick and thin, but we at JR Motorsports cannot defend the action Saturday. Are you familiar what happened Saturday? And if you are, do you think NASCAR should have done more during the race? Or are you okay with the $35,000 fine and the deduction of 30 points? Steve, I'll start with you.
I've been pondering this because I did watch the Xfinity race and I did see it, and I'd watch it again on replay today. I think it was a little overboard what he did because I don't think that the IndyCar guy, Sage Karam, intentionally tried to bump him off the track. I think Karam isn't what you would call a great stock car driver, and just got into him a little bit and put him in the dirt a little bit, but didn't do any damage to him. He's still running. And
it was on a restart, so they were really close together.
Yeah, I mean, it was that was just rubbing his race in pure form, and then Gregson, for some reason, just crossed a wire and just lit into Karam. I mean, he literally just turned his car right before there was a right-hand turn, and just then he created the melee behind him. Which the funniest part of that, you see the guy driving away with the Sorrento sign on the front of his car. That was hilarious. So
just blowing through a bunch of signs on the right side. Yeah.
No,
yeah.
I think NASCAR would be setting a bad precedent if they slap fines on people or did destructive stuff to people on the track, unless it's so egregious that you have no choice. I don't think this was to the point of so egregious. That wreck could have happened any time. Clean hit racing or not clean racing, I don't think it was unwarranted and unnecessary for Gregson's actions. But those wrecks are going to occur one way or another. Wait till this weekend and wait till we get to Daytona and Talladega. So I'm over it. The funny thing about it is the $35,000 just a drop in the bucket to those guys. I don't even know who's going to pay the fine. I don't know if JR Motorsports pays it or what. And then the 30 points they took from him didn't move him anywhere in the standings. He's still in fifth place. The sixth place guy's a little closer to him now. He's no farther or closer away. Instead of being 30 points out of first place, he's now 60 points out. But who cares? He's in the playoffs. They want to smack him, say, you're out of the playoffs. We take all your playoff points away, and you're done. You don't qualify. That's punishing him. This is not punishing him. They did nothing to him. Like I said, the money's marginal for those guys, and the points didn't affect him whatsoever. So no big deal, no harm, no foul, I guess is what NASCAR's saying. Yeah, remember, in my opinion, NASCAR doesn't want that shit to go away. They'll tell you they do, but in what Joe said was a miserably boring race, for the weekend, and this track, the Road America, just not a good track. Well, you said that about the NASCAR race. I forgot this is Xfinity.
Yeah.
And it was better Xfinity race. But, Robin is racing, and it was exciting to see it all kind of. Glad nobody got hurt. That would have been tragic if somebody would have gotten hurt or injured, because there were some cars that got tagged pretty good. But to me, it's just move on. Kelly Earnhardt and Dale Earnhardt kind of slapped Gregson on the wrist a little bit. They're not going to take any action against him, and everybody's going to move forward. And next week, 2 weeks down the road, I don't know if Karam even has the kahunas to retaliate or even knows how. He drives open wheel cars for a living, and he doesn't know how to bump and grind people. So
he can retaliate with his fist.
Yeah. There's nothing like watching two 5'4" millionaires bitch slap each other with their helmets on. Leave the fighting to the boxers and the pro football players. Anyway, I've said enough. Joe, your turn.
Yeah, cancel our Saturday night plans, Joe. But just a little backstory before Joe goes ahead.
Fuck you! I stopped.
What
a dick.
What ended up happening is he ended up wrecking again Corey Hunt, or the man you guys just mentioned, and ended up causing like 10 cars to wreck. Brandon Brown did come out worse for wear because he said he was out of breath and had a hard time getting out of his car. But the thing that sucked more than anything is Noah Gragson got to continue the race while everybody else did not. That was behind him during that melee. So I think going off of what you said, it is a very weak fine. And what they should have done is fine him for all the damage for all the cars that ended up being totaled in it. But, Joe, now I'm going to get to your analysis of it. Do you think NASCAR should fine drivers more, whether it be starting in the back of the field during the race? And do you have any problem with what he did?
So I'll try to answer this the best I can. I think NASCAR has
That's what we're looking for.
Yeah. I think NASCAR has set a terrible precedent in the past and up till now of disciplining drivers for egregious actions on the track. In my personal opinion, Noah Gragson should have been black bagged from the race. He should have been suspended 4 races, and he should be banned from the playoffs this year. He intentionally caused a wreck because of his temper that could have potentially hurt several drivers and almost did hurt one bad. When you wreck in the course of racing, and it is a normal race wreck, that happens, that's part of racing. But when you have a dumbass, hot-headed driver out there on the track running 170, 80 miles an hour on a road course on a straightaway, intentionally turning right into somebody and wrecking them out, we're suspending at the cup level, we're suspending pit crew members and crew chiefs 4 races because it's so dangerous to lose a tire. But yet we're saying it's essentially okay for a driver to go out there and wreck somebody intentionally at over 150 miles an hour. That's ridiculous. He should be suspended. He should be suspended the next 4 races. They didn't slap him on the PP hard enough, in my opinion. And I think Dale Jr. should have grown some balls and came out and said, you know what? That's not what Junior Motorsports is about. We're not defending that driver. We don't even want him racing for us anymore. That's the kind of shit that should lose you the opportunity to race. I will hate Noah Gragson for the rest of his racing career for what he did, and I think he's a whiny little bitch. And it's apparent that the rest of the Xfinity Series can't stand him based on what other drivers have said about him. So that's my opinion, and that's my take on that.
Well, kind of going off what you said, I don't think Dale Jr. can have that opinion when his father is Dale Earnhardt. I mean, Dale Earnhardt's notorious for wrecking people whenever and however he wanted to because he was Dale Earnhardt. So
that's different, though, Ryan. That's different. Dale Earnhardt would bump you and move you out of the way to win a race. This dumbass son of a bitch intentionally wrecked somebody. He didn't wreck him in the past. He wrecked him because he was pissed. When you bump some bullshit, when you bump somebody in the ass to get around them to win a race or to take a spot, that's racing. When you intentionally turn right into somebody because they pissed you off and you cause a 12-car pileup and potentially a driver, that's a little different.
So, I would typically side with you. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You talk.
I would typically agree with you, Joe, but you're the same person that said it was okay for Ross Chastain to not use his brakes going into the last turn at Coda. He had no intention on slowing down. He wrecked 2 people to end up winning that race, and that was fine for you guys because I've been the only one that said I don't like people intentionally hitting people out of the way. So I find it a little bit different on both sides in terms of whether it's Xfinity or whether it's the Cup Series. It seems like I've been on an island this entire year saying I don't like guys feeling like they need to be intentionally wrecked to end up winning the race. And now when it happens in the Xfinity Series, we're going to take this really hard stance. So I find there a little bit of a differing of opinion.
That's apples and oranges, though, Ryan. That's when you're wrecking somebody or bumping somebody to win a race on a last lap, that is different than wrecking somebody 30 laps into a 62-lap race or whatever it was because you're pissed off. He had no intention of finishing that race when he wrecked. When he turned right, he totally planned on taking himself out of the race too. That's totally different. He wrecked him because he was pissed for no other reason than he was pissed. Not to win a race, not to get a spot, because he's got a temper and he decided to wreck the guy that was racing him hard. And that's, you're comparing apples to oranges. When you bump somebody on the last lap to win a race, it is not the same as bumping somebody midway through the race because you got pissed off. And he didn't even bump him. He turned right into him. He fucking T-boned him.
Okay, so it's okay to wreck people if you're going for the win, but if you're not going for the win, it's not okay. So you mentioned it was about safety at first. Then you mentioned it was about, not wrecking I said cars. Now it's okay as long as it's on the last lap.
If you're going to suspend people for losing tires and say it's about safety and then slap somebody on the wrist for intentionally wrecking and causing another car at high speed and intentionally wrecking them for no reason. You're not trying to gain a spot. You're not trying to win the race. He intentionally wrecked him because he was pissed off because he's a crybaby little bitch. And that's what he did. And he's got a bad attitude. So if you're going to suspend people for 4 races for losing a tire and then essentially say, oh, this is okay, I have a problem with that.
Well, showing a great master of patience. Steve, what do you have to say?
Well, the precedent's been set a long time ago, and Dale Earnhardt is guilty, as long as a long list of other drivers of just wrecking people when he got pissed. Don't tell me he just bumped people to get out of his way in first place. That's what the highlight films want to show you. But I'm sure you can go back in the archives of Dale Earnhardt driving, where he pulled that stunt all the time and got away with it because he was Dale Earnhardt. I remember Kansas plowing into, who'd he plow into?
Joey Logano.
Joey Logano,
Yeah.
just fucking plowed into him. It was right out of Days
Yeah.
of Thunder. You know, when you go back out there, I want you to hit the pace car. You know, he got tires, went back out on the track after the race or near the end of the race, and just crushed him. Crushed Logano against the wall. Gordon's done it. Gordon got into it with the 11 car one time, I think. They stopped in the pits. Harvick's got into it with people. They go into the pits and they start grinding each other's cars. And but the history and precedent of that has already been set about guys doing that in the sport. So, and Joe, you made a great point. I mean, I had to almost stop and rethink my whole thought process when you said they suspend guys for 4 days for not getting a lug nut on a tire for 4 weeks, and yet they allow this to go on. Well, that's the rules as they play right now. And Gregson was definitely out of line, but obviously he didn't break any rules. And by the way, what was this car doing at the end of the race?
What do you mean?
It was running. So I don't know that he
Well,
tried to take him out to wreck his own car. He took off and ran. He didn't even get touched. After he hit Theron, he bounced off Theron and just drove right through everything, went right past everybody. And the melee happened
because he got
behind
lucky.
him. So, well, guys won 5 or 6 races in the Xfinity Series this year. I don't know if it's all luck. Might be a good driver too. But
I
no,
hope he wrecks out the rest of the season.
Your argument's good, but the problem is the precedent's been set by NASCAR, and it's too inconsistent in how they do it. They're not going to suspend Earnhardt. They're not going to suspend Gordon when he does it. They weren't going to suspend Kenseth when he did it. They let him go, and it's the same thing. And Gregson is a prodigy in the Xfinity Series. I mean, he's going for a championship. So I think until NASCAR sets down rules and says, if you pull a stunt like this again, this is what will happen to you. You know, there will not be a review. There will not be a penalty awarded on Wednesday. You will immediately be taken away, sat down. Your car will be off the track for 4 weeks, and you'll have to deal with your sponsors. And the driver will have to deal with his team owner who put him in that situation. But until that rule is made, you got to let it go. You got to say bad move, stupid. And yeah, I remember the one guy coming out slowly, but he eventually walked away and he just got the wind knocked out of him.
Yeah,
well, Steve,
thank God that's all that happened. I mean, that's bad enough.
I agree with you, Steve, that NASCAR set the precedent, and that's how I started my conversation is you can't do anything else other than what they did. But us as fans and us sitting here critiquing NASCAR on a show can definitely have an opinion that we think it's wrong the way that they're handling it. And I do. So I mean, I don't think as a fan, I just move on. I think I formulate my opinion. I decide that Noah Gregson's a whiny little bitch, and I don't root for him or Junior Motorsports until they get rid of him.
Fair enough.
Did you cheer Matt Kenseth when he wrecked Logano?
Yes, I did.
As did I. So, moving forward, we're going to talk about something that completely baffled me in the news, and that was announced that Christopher Bell is going to have members of his pit crew switched with Bubba Wallace for the upcoming race, and I don't know if it's a permanent switch, if it's just for one race. So I have 2 questions for you, and Joe, I'll let you start first. In what world, and maybe you can be somebody to enlighten me, how does this make sense for Joe Gibbs? And if you're Christopher Bell, what does that say about you as a member of Joe Gibbs Racing?
Well, I think this is kind of twofold here. One, you can look at this from 2 different perspectives, right? We know Bubba Wallace is bitching and complaining and basically putting the blame on everybody but himself as to why he's running races the way he's running races. He doesn't understand that he's the common denominator. And I think changing pit crews is going to show him that maybe he's the common denominator. And I think switching pit crews, I think maybe that this is the move to say, look, our pit crews are equal. Our pit crews, we have a standard for pit crews, and 23XI they do contract out pit crews from JGR, correct? And
Yes.
and I think this is JGR saying that pit crew is the top-notch pit crew that you're getting. We'll show you. We'll give you one so you can quit your bitching. And when you're still running 30th and 32nd place, it'll show you that it's not the guys behind the wall. It's the driver behind the wheel causing the positions that you're getting. So I think this is twofold, really. But I think it's probably the causation of this is probably Bubba Wallace blaming everybody but himself for his poor race performances.
But why should Joe Gibbs have to answer to Bubba Wallace when he does not pay the bills for Bubba Wallace?
Apparently, no, I get it, but apparently the whole damn world has to answer to Bubba Wallace. Bubba Wallace finishes 31st. Tyler Reddick wins his first race of his career, and it's about why Bubba Wallace finished fucking 30th, not Tyler Reddick winning his first race, because that's the storyline in NASCAR, and unfortunately, everybody has to answer to him right now. And he's the golden child of NASCAR for whatever reason, and Bubba Wallace gets what Bubba Wallace wants. And by God, it can't be Bubba Wallace's fault that he can't break the top 20. So you need to give me another pit crew since we're paying you for a decent pit crew. That's why.
Steve, if you're Christopher Bell and you're right now the last person in the playoffs who's run probably his best, most consistent season, and now your pit crew is being changed mid-season for a guy that's 23rd in points, how would that make you feel, and what kind of message does that send from your boss, Joe Gibbs, in your opinion?
Oh, that I'm not really that relative or important, or Gibbs doesn't have any faith in me getting anywhere in the playoffs out of the first round anyway. So, and this is what I've heard. I'm going into silly season here a little bit, but I did a lot of research on stuff and started digging into the rumor mills. And first off, the rumor that it was more than a rumor. Dale Earnhardt had an open conversation on one of his shows, something like that, and they asked him, if he plans to take a car to the Cup Series next year, who's his most coveted driver. He came out and said the name of the person he wants to drive his car next year, Martin Truex Jr. He said, I'll give Martin a longer contract if he wants to stay 2 or 3 years. He said, I think it was Gibbs, he'd make it just a 1 year because of the Tyler Gibbs situation. But he said, I would covet Martin Truex running my car. And, we're basically, he didn't say it, but JGR would just be Hendrick equipment anyway. So Truex would be running Hendrick equipment. That's one of the rumors. So, but the other one I heard that was interesting.
Now, Steve, can I stop you for a second?
Yeah, please.
Didn't Martin Truex run DEI equipment when he got into NASCAR? When he raced for the number one?
I know
was that the number one?
Was that did he run the
one? I thought that was Steve Park.
That was Steve Park. Number one car belonged to Earnhardt, DEI.
Yeah, I thought Truex did it for a very small amount of time.
If he ran, he would have run for DEI under the one car.
Okay.
I don't know that. I don't know Martin Truex's career early on because he floundered around for a while. He didn't really.
He was a journeyman early.
Until he got with Michael Waltrip's team, where they had the Red Bull sponsorship and things like that. Right. And then he started to get known, started to win a few races, and then he started moving from there greatly. I don't know. The other interesting piece of that ties into this, and they'll get back into the whole picture. First, if I was Christopher Bell, I'd be pissed. The other thing we're hearing about that is rumblings going on now that blatant now that 2311 is just a 5 or 6 car for JGR. That they're not even consider they're operating as a satellite team, but effectively now by all this pit crew changing around, that they're trying to bolster one of their teams and feel solid with the other one. That it's now looking more like it's just a 5th and 6th car for JGR. So that was one to fly around. The other interesting one I heard, and again, these are rumors, people, so don't sit there and say I saw this in concrete, but is that it's a possibility that Hamlin is going to go to the 23 car and Wallace is going to come to the 11 car. That Hamlin wants to be on his own team. And since it's JGR equipment anyway, it's not really screwing anything up. But then Wallace would go to the 11 car. What I don't know, there's so many things involved in it. Where does FedEx go? Because does FedEx stay with JGR or does FedEx go with any, does McDonald's and Columbia and all people sponsoring the 23 car? Do they go? There's a lot to say. These are just early snippet rumblings of things that could be happening in the silly season. Joe, you look like you got something to say.
Well, I agree with what you say about Christopher Bell kind of looking at JGR and going, well, apparently I'm irrelevant. But this situation would make more sense for me, for JGR to look at 2311 Racing and say, you contract 2 pit crews from us. You have Kurt's and Bubba's pit crew. If you want to make a switch, you switch guys around with the guys that you have contracted. We're not giving you any of our guys.
Agreed.
So I don't understand. I don't understand exactly what's going on. And really, if you kind of look into that, just like you said, 2311's becoming the 5th and 6th race car for JGR. Maybe NASCAR should put the hammer down and say, no, we're not.
That's the rumblings of other drivers and other teams in NASCAR that they're saying NASCAR's allowing this to happen, knowing full well what's going on. So Ryan, if I was Christopher Bell, I'd be smelling of Ty Gibbs all over the place. They're trying to make a hole for Ty Gibbs. I don't care what they tell you about. They want him running Xfinity next year. That's just to calm everybody down and try and slow that monkey down a little bit. But as soon as the season's over, I guarantee you Gibbs is going to be in the JGR car next season. Somebody's going to move. Somebody's going to get axed or not renewed. I mean, this is no way this is not going to happen.
Yeah,
and that's my
think,
opinion of it. So go ahead.
No, I think there are ripple effects, and there's just things at JGR that just do not make sense at all going on right now. I did just look it up. Martin Truex did drive with DEI from 2005 through 2009 in that one car, and drove with Bass Pro Shops at that time. So there obviously is a connection there, Steve, working with DEI Motorsports and Kelly Earnhardt from back in the day. So that does make a lot of sense. The thing that I would look at is if I'm Christopher Bell and I'm the 4th driver for Joe Gibbs Racing, I'm probably getting the 4th best equipment. I'm probably getting the 4th best pit crew. And you're now going to supplant me with the 6th best pit crew because of Bubba Wallace. I have a really hard time with that. Christopher Bell's a talented driver. I think we've seen a lot of production from him this year, a lot of growth of what he can provide to a NASCAR team. And this would not sit well with me at all. I think it would make more sense for Joe Gibbs to say, okay, if we want to throw you a bone 2311, then you can have Denny Hamlin's pit crew. He's in the playoffs. You don't have to worry about him trying to make it. Instead, you give him the guy that's literally right there on the cusp with 8 races to go, and there's only 3 spots left, and he's in by points by only 20 points. You really just show Christopher Bell the middle finger and say, good luck. The only thing that I can think of is that the guy moving over to the Christopher Bell team is a grandson. He's either a grandson or nephew of Joe Gibbs. He's a left rear tire changer. Maybe that's the only thing is I'm going to make a trade because I can now get a fellow Gibbs at Joe Gibbs Racing. But at the end of the day, I think it's a terrible move for Christopher Bell. I think it makes no sense. And it would just be about as big of a backhand slap to the face to work for Joe Gibbs and him to do that to me. If I'm Christopher Bell, I go sit in Joe Gibbs' office and say, you know what? You want to give people away? Then give the damn owner of 2311's pit crew away. Let him have it. Joe, you got anything else?
No, I agree. I don't think I'd say that.
I agree too. I mean, it's one we need to keep our finger on and just watch, see what develops. I'm intrigued more about the rumor of Hamlin going to 2311. I got this feeling Hamlin's got this thing for Michael Jordan. They're both golfers, and I just think I almost sense like Hamlin wants to go be part of the of the Jordan experience of 2311. And then he would be the driver and working with Jordan on it. So interesting. It's just, like I said, this is all rumors, people. It's speculation at this point, but let's keep an eye on this and watch what kind of rumor mills and how more involved they get and what happens to drivers as we wind down this season, because we're 18 races from it being over, which will go real quick. But
right,
interesting stuff. Very interesting stuff.
Well, before we get into the next topic, I want to remind you that the Grueling Truth is powered by betting.net. Betting.net is your best bet to find an online sportsbook or casino that's right for you. Joe, kind of time your coughs better, man. I'm trying to pay bills.
I'm sorry.
You're not sorry. Well, moving on to another young driver and somebody else that impressed this weekend is Ty Gibbs. Ty Gibbs ended up passing Kyle Larson on the late stages of that race. So Hendrick had 2 wins slip away from them on Saturday and Sunday. And oddly enough, this was probably the most competitive field in an Xfinity Series race because there was a ton of NASCAR Cup Series drivers that dropped down. But after the race, Ty Gibbs, during his press conference, said this. He said, I need to earn back the respect of the drivers in this series because I know what I did at Martinsville and I need to find a way to move forward. He ends up passing Kyle Larson in a clean way, didn't bump him or move him. Kyle Larson even kind of shoved him off a little bit, ran him tight, not a dirty move, but a very defensive move. Steve, I'll start with you. If you had any resentment towards Ty Gibbs, has that been changed after this race? And Ty Gibbs is the best NASCAR prospect in the Xfinity Series since who?
First off, just to answer your first question, do I have resentment? One thing about me, I don't get jealous of my wife. Okay, jealousy's not a bone I have in my body, and I don't hold grudges. So do your battle. I've played at the highest level in college basketball, banged and gotten the crap knocked out of me by some of the greatest players went on to play in the NBA and gave it right back to them. When it's rubbing is racing, when you get off the track, you put it behind you and you move on. And you don't hold a grudge about it. Otherwise, you're only going to screw yourself up. Look at what Harvick did to himself trying to take Elliott out 2 years ago at the Roval.
Yep.
He missed him entirely, just put his own car to the first turn wall and made himself like a stupid fool. So don't hold grudges. Now, the second part of your question was what?
Ty Gibbs is the best NASCAR prospect since who?
Since Ty Gibbs. I mean, there's a great NASCAR prospect coming out. And Chastain ran Xfinity, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he ran it. Christopher Bell ran it. Elliott is a NASCAR Xfinity Cup Series champion. I mean, you can't say he's the best one since he's there. He's the best one in the Xfinity Series right now. Although I might say Allmendinger is, truthfully. So I don't think he's that kind of a prodigy. He's a good driver, but because of Gibbs' involvement, we're putting him on his pedestal that sets him high above everybody else. I mean, winning in Xfinity and winning in the Cup are 2 different things. We all know that, and everybody that watches both races knows it's a completely different cat. So I ain't going to label him the best since anybody. I don't. He's the best driver in the sport right now, and every year there's another one coming out. Elliott, Chastain, Bell. I mean, you can go down the list of guys that have come out and were great in the Xfinity and really have done okay in the Cup. A lot of them got wins, but they haven't set the world on fire like they were doing in the Xfinity.
Yeah, well, that's fair enough. Joe, Ty Gibbs rubbed you the wrong way at Martinsville. Did he do anything to buy back some nice words from you here?
No, I think that he had a great pass, and I respect Kyle Larson for saying at the end of the race that he passed me clean, so I wasn't going to give it back to take essentially the win away from him, because really, if that would have been a Cup race, Kyle Larson wins that race because he had a couple opportunities to do a little bumping to make the pass, I think. But I think Ty Gibbs ran a good race. I think that he showed he can run on road courses. And as he moves up, he's probably going to be competitive on road courses right out of the gate. He'll probably be competitive right out of the gate. I think what I think maybe the answer you're looking for is he's the greatest Xfinity driver since, and I think you may be looking for Kyle Busch, but I don't really want to put him on a Kyle Busch pedestal because I feel like Kyle Busch worked his way up and got an incredible amount of wins and earned his spot at the Cup Series and has proven himself. I think Ty Gibbs has been put on a pedestal. He's been fast tracked and was set up for success from the time that he got into a race car. So I don't really think you can compare a driver that worked his way through the sport and has a genuine love from the sport, comes from a racing family that wasn't all, wasn't, well known in the Cup Series and worked his way through the dirt circuit up through NASCAR and cemented himself into the sport like a Kyle Busch. So I don't really like to compare those kind of drivers like Austin Dillon or the Dillons either. I mean, they were handed what they have, and he will. To me, he will always be a driver that was handed the success that he's going to get. Now, I'm not saying that the kid can't drive. He 100% can't drive, but it's hard for me to compare. Like I said, it's hard for me to compare, a Manning. Any Manning that plays football is going to be set up for success. So when you take a guy like that and you hand him everything, it's hard to compare to other drivers that have worked their way through the circuit and put in the time. But I'm not taking anything away from him. The kid can drive.
To me, that was like you saying "no offense," but and then said something offensive.
Right.
I mean, you're going to say that I'm not going to hold anything against them, but these are all the things that I hold against them. I mean, to me,
how many thousands of drivers out there do you think have raced on dirt tracks on Friday and Saturday night throughout this country that could have been the best race car driver in the sport, the best stock car driver in the sport, for whatever reason, because they didn't have the means, they weren't given an opportunity, that they never made it to that level?
And why is that Ty Gibbs' fault? Why is that Ty Gibbs' fault?
It's not. But
then why do you hold it against him if it's not his fault?
I didn't say I was holding against him. I just said that I'm not going to compare him to a driver that I feel has earned their way into where they're at. I don't feel that he has earned the position that he was put in like other drivers. Braxton Busch is going to be the same way. Braxton Busch is going to have a golden ticket as he gets older, and that's nothing against him, but he's going to have a golden ticket as he gets older to be in a race car. And that kid will be driving in the Xfinity Series by the time he's 17 years old. I can almost guarantee it. So
let's just go ahead and tell Kyle Busch now to tell him to quit racing on dirt when he's 7 or 8 years old.
But
might as well, right? He's just wasting time and wasting resources. If that's the case,
no, I'm not saying that. But you want a comparison.
That's what you're alluding to. That's the exact same thing you're saying.
Yeah. I think he was handed everything he has. He's a good race car driver, but I'm not going to compare him to other drivers that have worked their way into the positions that they are.
He is racing 1.5 seasons. He's not even racing 2 complete seasons yet. He has 8 wins. He won the very first race he ever competed in the Xfinity Series, and he's shown that he has talent. There's nothing you can take away from Ty Gibbs other than the fact that things that he can't change. He cannot change who his grandpa is. This is not an Austin Dillon or a Ty Dillon situation where you're bringing up guys that were mediocre on lower series. You're bringing up and talking about a guy that's 19 years old. I believe he just turned 19 years old and is number 2 in the standings right now and definitely is on his way to win a championship. Is he going to stay down at the Xfinity Series level for multiple years? No, he doesn't have to because he's already shown what he's worth to this series. And to hold whatever it is, him being born with the Gibbs last name, I think is just completely, it's asinine to me. I look at a guy that can drive, or if he can't drive, his resume has already shown he's one of the best drivers in the Xfinity Series. He has checkered flags to prove it. It don't matter who his damn last name is, okay? That has nothing to do with it. He's already got the resume that shows that he's a really good driver. And if you can't separate Ty Gibbs from Joe Gibbs as the for whatever reason, I don't know. I don't know. And to ask me a question like how many people have come through the dirt series that could have been good, I have no idea how to answer that. I have no idea how to answer that.
Because you don't know. There's no way to tell that.
That's a rhetorical question. Yeah, you're right. I don't know. So I don't know what the purpose of asking me a question that nobody knows the answer to. You know, not everybody in life gets to be handed things fairly. Not everybody in life gets to enjoy the things this is as equal opportunity as we can get. You know, he has the opportunity to drive. He's shown that he can drive. I guess if you race in dirt, then you should be given the opportunity to drive in a NASCAR Xfinity Series car.
I guess the question is, if his last name wasn't Gibbs, would he be in the situation that he's in right now at 19 years old?
Look at his wins. What does he have to do to show that he doesn't have wins?
Would he have the opportunity at 19 years old to be where he's at right now? At 19 years old, his last name wasn't
every
Gibbs.
place he's raced, he's won. He raced and won in ARCA. He's raced in Xfinity and he's won. I don't know what else he has to do.
And he was given that opportunity because of his last name. I'm telling you, if his last name was Spilman,
he should sign a contract that said that he should stay in the league for 3 years in the Xfinity Series so that nobody else gets passed up on because his last name is Gibbs. Is that more fair?
I'm not saying the kid can't drive.
You need to do your time. You need to do your time, Ty Gibbs. So please stay lower so that everybody else has their chance, even though you've already proven it with almost double-digit wins in less than 2 years. But it's not fair for everybody else. That sounds like an equity argument. I don't want to hear. I'm not here for that.
Well, I'm just saying that at 19 years old, if that kid's last name wasn't Gibbs, he wouldn't be in the position that he's in right now.
Oh, hang on here. Whoa. You guys have talked long enough. Joe, do you include Chase Elliott in that lump category of the Golden Spoon?
Yes,
you do.
I think.
Okay, well, here's where you and I do. Go ahead and finish yours. I got.
No, I think if we're talking about this open and honestly, I think the majority of NASCAR is a pedigree sport that you can't get into unless you belong to a certain family.
I don't know if that's true or not. I think there's a handful of guys that belong to certain families, and really, Bill Elliott has no ties to Hendrick Motorsports at all. Never drove for him, never did anything for him, and he's really not a full-time employee. I don't think he's even an employee for Hendrick. I think he just advises Chase. Anyway, the thing where I think where Ryan's making sense here, where I don't know if you're paying attention to, the same way I feel about Chase Elliott, there's a thing called validation. Chase Elliott won an Xfinity Cup championship. All right, he validated himself in that sport. He came out within 3 years, won a Cup championship before he was 25 years old. He validated. He's got 15 wins. He's not 26 years old yet. I mean, there's a man who has come into it. Yeah, he got opportunity, but that's just the nature of the beast. What I look at is what these guys have done with that opportunity, and have they validated themselves for getting that opportunity. And that's why I would never throw Chase in that category, because he's clearly validated himself in the sport. He is a bona fide superstar in that sport right now. I mean, he earned his way up there to get that. He got went right to Hendrick, and that doesn't happen very often. But, you know, he's validating himself. And I think Ty Gibbs, what Ronnie's trying to get is he's validated himself so far everywhere he's been.
Right.
And you know, what Ty needs to do is get an Xfinity championship under his belt. You know, put one away and then move on. And take that road where I think there are a lot of guys like Christopher Bell. Did Bell ever win an Xfinity championship? No, I don't think so. Did Chastain ever win one?
No.
No? Okay.
He won a truck. He ran a truck championship. He did not win an Xfinity.
Yeah, well, and that counts for something. Still, if you won a championship, that means for the season you were probably the most consistent or best driver in that series. That counts somewhere along the line. So I look for validation, what these guys do with that golden ticket. The story on like a Brexton, Bush, you know, is what does he do with that name? Does he take his name and does he validate himself for having that name? And then I say, let's not get on their asses, because they are now earned their way to be recognized where they are.
Yeah, and I think that's the way we treat everything in life. I'm not going to turn down a job opportunity if somebody else has a better resume because they like me better as an employee. I don't think any of us would ever do that in any situation to say, you know what, I haven't done my time yet, or I think this person may be more valuable, so I'm just going to go ahead and hold off and not do what's best for me and let somebody else rise through. We don't do that in real life. I don't think it should be the same way in motorsports. And like you said, Steve, you have one job, and that's to win races. And the people that we're talking about are winning races. Dale Earnhardt Jr. was a great Xfinity Series driver.
He
You know,
won.
he
He's got a
never
championship under his belt.
right. He never
He won
materialized to the expectations of a Cup Series driver, but he still, you know, was a good Xfinity Series racer and, you know, done things at the highest level. So I have no tie to Ty Gibbs, but I also don't understand the prejudice for something that somebody can't control. None of us control who our last name is, our parents or our grandparents, and if there's certain things that come with that, so is life. But moving on to the next topic, for the first time this season, we have a racetrack that's actually been driven by next-gen cars with the Atlanta race this weekend. So the winner of that race was William Byron earlier in March, and actually that race is how I found my way onto this show. But going into that, the finish of that race, Chevy's really dominated, having 6 of the top 10 drivers at the end of that race. Now that we've had the newest super speedway, a mini Daytona that is Atlanta, Joe, I'll let you start off. What are your expectations now that you've seen next-gen cars drive on this racetrack?
Well, I think my expectations are what we essentially saw 7 weeks, 8 weeks. Well, how many weeks ago has it been now? 9 weeks ago. What we saw there. I think that you know, it's a 1.5-mile track. It runs like a super speedway. Obviously, it was a very fun race to watch. And my expectations are we're going to see a race very similar to a super speedway. And when we talk about super speedway races, we all know that's a crapshoot. Drivers can set themselves up for success, but there's so many variables in a high speed race like this, that high banking race, that you know, it doesn't matter if you have the best car, it doesn't matter if you're the best driver. More than likely, you're going to get caught up into something beyond your control, and we could possibly have another winner at the end of on Sunday. So that's kind of my expectations. I expect another great race and an exciting race.
Steve, what do you expect going into Atlanta for the second time, the new Atlanta Motor Speedway?
Yeah, you know, I got mixed emotions. I watched the last 40 laps of the Atlanta race earlier today. Just pulled it up.
It was bonkers.
Yeah, it was bonkers, but it didn't end like a Daytona or a Talladega race does. I mean, Byron clearly outdrove everybody, and there was a clean ending to that race, basically, for the most part. And to me, that's why I think my expectations, like Joe said, are same. It's like I think it's going to be a super speedway race, but I think I'm going to be disappointed. I think it'll pack race a little bit. I think they'll pack race a lot. They don't have restrictor plates, obviously, but they regulate them somehow, keep all the horsepower equal. And I'm sure it's another one of those tracks because it is the highest banked 1.5-mile track on the circuit. And it will act like a super speedway, but I don't think it's going to end like a super speedway with the big one happening and Bubba Wallace coming out of flames and smoke and pulling off another victory. So I think it's going to take a lot of driving skill to win this race. And I think whoever's hot going into this thing or got a good car, set up well, Toyota scared the crap out of me right now. I think those cars were dialed in. I can't measure Toyota Gibbs by the road course. I'm not going to do that because you put them on this track, they're going to be a whole different cat. And I think they got a little more aero and horsepower than do or get more out of it than are the Hendrick boys. And, you know, it's going to be a battle between those two teams, I think, going in here. But I'm hoping it's more of like a super speedway race. But I don't think it's going to be.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Steve, because watching all 3 series race at this track, the truck race was awesome. And more often than not, truck drivers let it all hang out. That's just the way truck driving's always been. The Xfinity series, oddly enough, was really boring. It was literally a single line around and around, except for the last 5 laps. The first stage of this race, NASCAR drivers were pretty conservative. The second stage was bananas. I mean, it was side-by-side racing the entire time. And then the third stage, it was calm at first, but then the last about as many laps as you said, Steve, were some pretty good racing. The thing that listening to the radio with these teams is they talked about how slick it was at certain spots and how these cars were right there on edge all the time. The bottom lane was pretty fast. The top lane, it took a little bit of momentum because they didn't really run the bottom. They ran like 2/3 up, and there's not a lot of room on this traditional 1.5-mile track. So I'm hoping after being in this race the first time that these drivers do let it all hang out and drive these cars the way we could see them like towards that second stage, because I think it has a chance to be a good race. But you're right, Steve. I think there's also that strong possibility that they say, hey, we know how hairy this can get. Let's just all stay single file. And if that's the case, it will not be a fun race. So it to me, there's one of two outcomes. We'll be really excited Sunday night when you join us, or we'll be like Joe and say, was this a good race? No.
Yeah, I'm curious to see. I think they have a better understanding of the aero package of these cars now than they did the first time. Whether they put that tacky stuff on the track or not, the resin
they won't now because it's a new pave. It's a brand new pave, so they
won't touch it. So you're stuck with what you're stuck. And there was side by side racing in the spring all the way to the end, but it was separated enough to where you didn't feel anybody was going to just go a half inch or an inch sideways and tag anybody. There was room. There was good spacing between all the cars, and they behaved themselves.
I think that's what it was, Steve. I think they were scared to death because I think that they thought with these new cars, it's only the third race of the year. I think based on what I was listening to the scanner on practice, that these drivers had their butt cheeks clenched and said, man, if I make one false move, I'm going to wreck 40 other drivers. Right. So I think that's what you're alluding to.
One thing's for sure, though, it'll be a better race than Road America.
He holds a grudge.
You can take that to the bank.
He holds a grudge. He can't let it go. No, I forgot what I was going to say, and it was a really good comment.
God
the
damn
best one I was going to have all day.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll remember it, Steve. Cut one of us off later.
Wow.
Hopefully it's me during our picks.
Wow, I've tried to be really good and quiet and let you guys all talk.
No, wait, hey, we get to the part that I dread the most, and this is where we make the pick. So, Steve, if you think of it, go ahead and interrupt us whenever if it comes back to you. But, Joe, I'll let you start off.
I know what I was going to say.
Here it is. Here it is.
I just thought of it. Let me get it out right quick. I think the one element that's going to be in this race that was not in the spring race that may jumble everything up at the end is desperation. There are some drivers out there that are getting desperate. This is the 8th race. There's only 7 to go after this. And if guys like Harvick, who, this may be his best chance to pull one out somehow. And there's a lot of guys. Truex needs a win. I mean, Harvick needs a win. I mean, there's guys out there that are sneaky shit drivers. And then you got all the young guns who aren't going to be as scared as they were in the spring. I think you're going to see a lot more balls to the wall racing here, and the speeds are going to be up, and the race is going to be a lot tighter. And they're going to be trying to draft and use arrows as much as they can at the end, and working in partners a lot too. So that was my point. Desperation is something that wasn't there in the spring.
Yeah, that's a great point, Steve.
Thank you. See, I told you it was my best point.
Right, it really was a good one, and that there are 3 spots left. That's it. So these guys, like you said, I mean, they're going to be fighting tooth and nail to end up in victory lane because that might be their only chance.
Well, this track is, other than Daytona, on the last race of the year, this is really the only crapshoot race.
Right.
It's the only one. It's just the road courses are a crapshoot, but they're only a crapshoot from 5 or 6 drivers.
Right.
The whole field can't compete with the top 5 or 6, 7 drivers in the Cup. There's no way they're going to. There's three more road courses in the series. 1/5 of the races remaining are still road course races.
Yeah, for God's sakes, BJ McLeod had a top 15 here last time. So, Joe, I'm going to say you're not going to take B.J. McLeod, but you are going to lead us off with your picks. Where are you going?
Well, let's go over the points real quick first from last week.
You're the
Anyway,
leader.
I am the leader. But Steve, you got 6 points last week. I got 6 points. Ryan, I think you got 6 points.
Man, I'm about to throw this damn thing.
Hold
I
on.
counted 7. I counted 7 too.
Who'd you have in the
3 in the top 5.
Ross,
Yeah.
Daniel, Chase, Cedric.
Cedric? Okay, you got 7. You got 7 points.
Rigged ass shit.
Okay, so that gives us a season total. I'm at 66. Steve, you're at 65, and Ryan, you are at 57. And since you won last week, it's like golf. You get to choose. You can either go first or
last. Save the worst for
all
last.
right. I'll go ahead and give my picks this week. It's going to be Elliott for obvious reasons because Steve's going to take him. I'm also going to take Kyle Busch.
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah. I'm going to take Ross Chastain this week. I'm going to come out of left field with one. I'm going to take Ryan Blaney.
That is out left field.
And I'm going to go with Joey Logano.
It feels out of left field to take a guy fourth in regular season points. It's weird.
I know. I don't know that I've only picked him once or twice this season. So
I haven't picked him at all yet, and unfortunately, I picked him this week too. But that's Joe.
Steve,
Joe. All I can say is great minds think alike.
yeah, that's true.
You know.
So Steve, you have Elliott.
I got Elliott, Chastain,
God, this is where I make
Blaney,
really bad decisions.
Elliott, Chastain, Blaney, Byron. I think he could possibly win it again. He's due to get hot. Hendrick usually runs good at these super speedways. My fifth driver, I've given up on little son of a buck, but he's probably going to win it. But I'm going to take him one more time. I'm going to take Truex. I was going to take Kyle Busch, but I'm going to take Truex. So I got Truex, Blaney, Chastain, Byron, and Elliott.
Got it.
We got some separation there, Joe.
Yeah, we do.
Yep.
All right, here we go. I'm going to go Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Michael McDowell. Yeah, go ahead. Here we go. Christopher Bell and Alex Bowman. I'm either going to get right back up there with you boys, or I'm digging my 6-foot grave.
Joe,
Well, I will say, Ryan, just 3 short weeks ago, you were about 18 points out of the lead, and now you're within 9 points of being in the lead.
5 points from Austin Cedric, baby.
Yeah, that's right. What's
Threw
up,
me
Steve?
the equity bone, and I took it.
no, never mind. It was an off-the-cuff, stupid comment, but I'm not going to make it.
Oh, that's
guys,
allowed here.
Yeah, it most certainly is.
It's not worth the air
grueling...
that'll come out of my mouth saying it. No, it wasn't mean. No, it wasn't nasty. It just was. No, it's all right.
Well, most of the air that comes out of me is actually south and not north. But do you guys have anything else to add on to this show before we close it out?
I do. I've been scrolling through the internet lately, and I came across this thing called the Game Day Podcast, and I think it is excellent. Ryan Peters. I think there's a guy by the name of Ryan Peters that hosts that podcast, and I think it's an excellent podcast.
I appreciate it. It's a little bit different than this. I dive into a little bit of everything. So if you aren't afraid to get offended and want to have a good conversation, that's a good one to listen to. So I appreciate that, Joe.
What is the topic? Racing or what?
It's everything. It's culture, it's
Oh.
society issues, religion, sports. Every day's game day.
You
So we
doing that
talk
with
about
Good
it all.
Pastor?
Myself,
Oh, you
just
should
me
be
and a
doing it with
mic.
Good Pastor. He'd bury you on those conversations.
I don't want to get into a screaming match. This is the most animated I've gotten since I've been on here, and
You're
I feel
welcome.
flush. Yeah,
You're welcome.
I feel hot. I got hot and bothered today.
I know you did.
It's kind of like the race on Sunday.
My mom is going to hate Joe's guts after this.
She already hates.
More desperation, Ryan. There's more desperation now. So
Who's that guy being an asshole to you?
Yeah, I know. It's going to be military versus military, just like that. But again, this show, The Grueling Truth, is powered by betting.net. Betting.net is your best bet to find an online casino or sports book that's right for you. We will be back Sunday evening after this race. God, please do not let it end at midnight due to weather. So hopefully we can be around 9 to 10. So be ready to tune in. Hopefully it'll be a wonderful race. We had a lot of those in a row, and it seems like we're kind of hit this weird stretch here with the road courses where hasn't been nearly as fun. So, Joe, Steve, I appreciate it. You guys are awesome as always. And we'll talk to you Sunday evening.
Good night.
That's going to do it. My name is Ryan Peters. Everyone, have a good evening.